What's up, ladies and gents? You know what time of day it is. It's XLM time, and in today's video we're going to be talking all about XLM. We're going to be discussing what we are seeing here on the charts, and I'll be giving you guys my price prediction for XLM over the coming days and weeks, as well as my targets for 2025. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Of course, if you are a new viewer, then welcome to this channel. If you do like this sort of content, hit the like button and subscribe for more. If you are a returning viewer, as always, welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you all here. So, of course, we're going to be diving straight into this video. We're going to start off with the shorter term here on XLM and then move on to the 2025 targets. Of course, we are on the 4-hour chart right now for XLM, and the trend over the past few days, as you can see, has been a little bit downhill. Of course, we did have that great news on Friday regarding the rate cuts, which pumped the price here on XLM. But since then, the prices have been heading down. And of course, if you look in the top right, it's hard to ignore the blood that is in the markets today. Of course, pretty much every single crypto that we cover on this channel is down today by quite a few percentage points. So just a general market-wide crash. But of course, I do not think this is the time to be feeling bearish on crypto. In fact, on the contrary, I do think that here on XLM, things are still looking very good. And I do think that prices could still rise here over the coming days and weeks because of the fact that if we zoom out here on XLM, to get a bit more context, prices haven't fallen that much here on XLM. And in fact, if we draw the support that we've been monitoring here on this channel, you can see that XLM is hovering pretty close to where the support for the price has been. Now, of course, here on XLM, we've also been monitoring this as our resistance. And so as you guys can see on the screen, we have this triangle pattern here on XLM. And even with that drop that we saw in the shorter term, we are still well within this triangle pattern. So the fact that the prices are right close to the support at the moment tells me that this is a decent area to be buying into XLM, with the expectation that we would expect to see this as a support and for prices to rise and do something like this at least over the coming days. Now, of course, what we are watching for in the shorter term is for a potential breakout to the upside of this upper resistance line here, because if that were to occur, then it would trigger off this triangle pattern that we are seeing here, and that would give us a price target of the first test of support, which is down here, to the first test of resistance up here. And if we drag this to wherever we could expect the breakout, let's just say that happens in a couple of weeks' time, we could be looking at a price target here on XLM of 0.64. So this is something that, in my opinion, we could expect over the coming weeks if the markets allow. Now, of course, if you want to get $10 completely free to buy some XLM before we see any potential breakout of this triangle, then don't forget to check out the MEXC exchange. As you can see here on the screen, they're giving every new user who signs up using the link in the description down below $10 to get started. Now, this exchange does not require KYC. The only thing that you need to do to get this $10 is to deposit some fiat or crypto into your new MEXC account. And once you've done that, you'll get that $10 straight away. So you can buy XLM with it, or you can use it to long or short XLM with up to 300 times leverage using their futures. Again, the link for this is in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Let's get back into this video. So, of course, this is one of the shorter term patterns that we are seeing here on XLM. There's plenty of other reasons outside of XLM, in my opinion, to still be bullish in the shorter term. For example, if we head over to Ethereum, despite the little drop that we have seen a new all-time high here on Ethereum. Of course, as you can see, we are on the 1 week chart for Ethereum. Prices have hit a new all-time high just a few days ago, and we have broken out of this 5-year long triangle pattern. Now, of course, the price target for this firmly puts Ethereum in the 5-figure range. And since we're seeing a breakout of this triangle, we would expect prices here on Ethereum to continue heading upwards. Now, of course, Ethereum doing that would be very good for us here in XLM by the fact that we have this capital rotation chart. So right now we are in phase 2, which is Ethereum basically outperforming Bitcoin. We know that because Ethereum's been making new all-time highs while Bitcoin's stuck at the 110K, 115K range. And so we are firmly in phase 2 of this capital rotation chart. Now, according to the charts, when Ethereum pumps enough, we're going to start seeing capital rotate out of Ethereum. So basically, people taking profits on the Ethereum pump that has occurred, and they're going to start putting it into large caps. Now, this is where XLM will benefit the most, because when that capital rotates into XLM, it will push up the market price. It will push up the market cap of XLM. And so in theory, we should see XLM do its best when we get to this phase 3 section. Now, at the moment, like I say, we are in phase 2, but it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, before we really start to see this rotation into phase 3. And when this does occur, it's going to be very exciting for XLM, because this is just one of the shorter term price patterns that we are seeing. But if we zoom out more on the XLM charts, things get even more bullish. And what we are seeing here on the slightly longer time frames for XLM, in my opinion, is still this bull flag pattern. So we've seen this structure here over the course of 2025 on XLM, where prices were just heading within this channel downwards. We saw a clear breakout to the upside already from this bull flag. And of course, we had this parabolic move going into the bull flag in the first place. So when you look at the schematic in the bottom right, we do have a fairly textbook bull flag pattern. Now, of course, the price target of a bull flag pattern is the length of the parabolic move entering into the bull flag in the first place. So here for XLM, it is this distance here where we touch the bottom of that support line. And of course, if we drag this to where we saw the breakout, which was during July, we see that we get a massive price target here on XLM of roughly $1. So this is another price target that we could potentially expect over the coming weeks if the markets allow. Of course, from where the prices currently stand, that is about a 171% upside here on XLM. So of course, another bullish price pattern here on XLM, but that is not the end of it. If we zoom out even more here on XLM, things get even wilder, because basically what we have here on XLM's chart, in my opinion, is this 7-year long consolidation. Now, this here is a triangle chart pattern. And of course, right now, we are fairly close to this upper resistance line that sits at 0.62. Now, what's interesting about this is that what I showed you in the shorter term is that prices could potentially hit those price targets that I gave you. So the last price target that I showed you was $1. Of course, if that were to occur, you can see that that would actually mean that we break out of this upper resistance line from this triangle pattern. And if that was to occur, that would trigger off this massive triangle pattern, which the price target is the distance between the first test of support to the first test of resistance. And if we drag this to where we could potentially see a breakout, let's just say that happens in October, we could be looking at a price target here on XLM of $24. So that's a 3,600% upside. So this is obviously the result of this 7-year long consolidation pattern that we're seeing here on XLM. Now, something that massively supports the idea that we could be seeing this triangle is the fact that we're seeing similar triangles on other cryptos. So for example, I already showed you Ethereum's triangle. It's happened over the past 5 years as well. And so Ethereum is showing us a very similar consolidation pattern, which is already broken out of. If I show you a similar coin to XLM, which is HBAR, again, we can see that we've got a similar multi-year triangle pattern on the HBAR chart. We've got another one here on Link as well, also very close to breaking out to the upside. And finally, if we go on to XRP, this is an example of what happens when we successfully break out to the upside. You can see that here on XRP, we had this 7-year long triangle, and the successful breakout was followed by this massive 6x pump. So that's the kind of velocity that we get when we see a breakout of these long-term triangles. And here on XLM, we're not that far from breaking out of our own 7-year long triangle. So this is definitely an exciting prospect to have. Now, of course, $24 is an ambitious target. I'm not sure if we're going to be hitting that in 2025. I do think that this could be possible in the long term. But if we are looking at more conservative targets that we can have more conviction for in 2025, then the ones that I'm personally looking at fall along these Fibonacci levels, because basically these Fib levels have been respected as places of support and resistance for XLM throughout its history. So for example, you can see multiple instances where the prices have come up to different Fibs to test them as places of resistance. So essentially, we've got these Fib levels that can kind of forecast where we might encounter some resistance as Stellar goes to make new all-time highs. And the first realistic target for me here on Stellar for 2025 is this 1.272 Fib that tells us we could see $1.67. Past that, we've got this 1.414 Fib that tells us we could see $2.38. And the golden Fib ratio there tells us we could see $3.86 here on Stellar. So those are the three targets here for me in 2025. These are places where we could see some resistance. And of course, my longer term target here for Stellar would be this $24 target as a result of this 7-year long consolidation. Now, something that's going to really increase the chances of us hitting these upper price targets here on XLM is when we see extreme greed in the markets and an altcoin season. So basically, we've got these two indicators here on CoinMarketCap. Fear and greed index is a sentiment indicator. The higher the number, the more positive emotion there is in the markets. And basically that tells us how risk-taking investors are. At the moment, we are at 50. What we need to see here is a value of above 80, ideally, to get extreme greed in the markets. And for the altcoin season index, we need to see a value of above 75 that tells us we are in an altcoin season. So when we get these two values of above 80 and above 75, we get this perfect storm here in crypto where we see these massive pumps like what we had back in 2017 and 2021 in crypto in general, and it's going to give XLM the best possible chance, like I say, to hit these upper price targets. So this is basically a nice intuitive way to basically view how the crypto market is doing. When these two numbers are close to 100, that should tell you that we're fairly close to a market top in crypto. And if you have holdings in crypto, that would be a decent time to consider selling. So if you are a longer term holder, this is probably one of my favorite ways to basically check up on the crypto market every now and then. But for now, we are nowhere near those values just yet. So in my opinion, if you are just discovering crypto now, or XLM for that matter, I do still think that you are fairly early, because these values are nowhere near the conditions that we have that would suggest a market top. So, of course, that's what I wanted to say here for XLM. I know it's hard to be bullish when the whole market is bleeding like this, but honestly, there's still plenty of things to be bullish about here on XLM, both in the shorter term and the longer term. And it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, before we break out of this massive triangle pattern with that huge price target there at $24. So, of course, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful for you. Do let me know down in the comments if you are a holder here on XLM. If you are a holder, what are your personal price targets for 2025? Of course, thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next video.